Welcome to Tuesday Truths. I'm Andrew, your host, and today we're diving into the most powerful moments from this week's conversation with this week's amazing, inspiring guest. These are clips, but they're also insights that'll change how you see your own journey. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, I did a post. This got pointed out to me a few times. I did this post. I had photos of me from when I was in the club, and then photos of the post was about when I was in the toxic relationship, and I showed all these different photos of me, basically my weight loss journey, but the whole time it was when I was going through all this stuff because it all happened consecutively. And there was a heap of people commented on it saying, look at your face. It went from being hollow and empty to smiling and sparkling.
Yeah.
That's the comments that I was getting. And I looked at them and I was like, wow, it's like you can actually, if you put them in a flip card, it'd be like going from not smiling to smiling. And then everyone's like, I had this comment a lot, the sparkle's back in your eyes. That's what I got told a lot. Yeah, so it's really
hard for me to understand because I've only ever seen you with a sparkle in your eye. So,
but yeah, so back then I was 163 kilos.
Wow, I was going to ask you, what did you go from to? What
Yes.
You don't ask people's weights, but you went from 163. 163, did you say?
Yeah, I was 163, and this morning I was 112.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Just quickly before I do let you go then, because morning routines or just routines, and I know you work in the gym, you don't probably need to reiterate that part, but is there anything that you do at home? Yeah, I know you mentioned gratitude and things like that. Is there anything that you do to prepare yourself for the day?
Not so much now.
Yeah.
When I was acute and I was going through a lot of stuff, I did have set routines and I did have a set things that I did. I used to always journal, and I went through this stage of just feeling emotions all the time, crying 24/7, couldn't stop, until the point where I was like, enough's enough. I can't just keep living life like this. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to allow an hour every night. An hour every single night, I can absolutely let it all out, cry my eyes out. So what I would do is I'd journal. And a lot of people journal wrong. They end up monologuing and venting. When you journal, an easy way to stop that is you write, I feel like today I felt this. You need to lead everything with I statements and feel statements. That's the correct way to journal. Otherwise, you just end up venting and monologuing about your day. So make sure you do I feel statements. And then I'd cry my eyes out, and then I would do self-tapping. So I taught myself how to do self-tapping. So I'd do that 3 times. So it'd just be like banging here, banging here, here. And I'll take myself through that process. And do you want me to take you through that?
Sure.
Yeah. So how you do self-tapping is you tap yourself in the top of the head and you do it really hard. Yep. And then right above the eye, really hard. Then under the eye in this little bit here, and then under here. So we're trying to hit all these pressure points under here, and then right in this bit here, this pony bit, and then you lift up your arm and straight into the lat.
Into
your lat. Yep. So the idea is to do it really hard.
Yeah.
And can you feel that in your face now?
A little bit, yeah.
It's lingering?
Yeah.
So it helps get you out of your head. Okay. It's a mindfulness technique. So the idea is to do it pretty hard. And what I got to the stage where I ended up doing so you can feel it. Your head, it just stays
a bruise tomorrow like a peach.
So I used to do it with some affirmations. So I used to be like, I love myself. I do care, and all this sort of stuff. Everything's going to be okay. And then I'd give myself a big hug and I'd be like, I'm never leaving you again. I left you in childhood and I'm not going anywhere now. I'm here for you. I'm never going anywhere. And then I'd be like, oh, the hour's up. I'm done. Cool. Now I've got to go play guitar. I've got to go, try and do something else. I've got to go and do something. Oh, I've got to write my goals for tomorrow, because if I don't write my goals down, I'm going to be thinking about them the whole time I'm trying to sleep. If I write them down, they're going to be out of my head and I can stop thinking about them.
I never looked at it anything like that before.
But because everybody says fear, I'll go with the other way. Everybody wants to be comfortable these days.
Oh, don't even get me started, mate. I can talk about this. Wait, hold on. I pull it out that often. It's that easy to. I've interviewed Paul Taylor, the neuroscientist.
Yep. There you go. Yep.
Go for it. Carry on. Sorry.
Yep.
You got me excited.
So I talk about this thing called the stress curve model. There's all different versions of it, but there's only one version that I've ever been able to find that I've really liked. So the stress curve model, it's a curve, and then it's got a line down the center. So on one side where the curve is, that's where you don't want to be. The line in the middle, that is the comfortable zone, the comfort zone. And on the other side of that is the growth zone or the learning zone, whichever stage you want to call that, right? A lot of the stress graphs mistake this learning zone and they call it also the stress zone. Okay, so I'm 1 over. You go 1 over and that's your zone. So where the comfort zone is a great thing and it's there for a purpose. You're meant to go out of your comfort zone and go into the learning and growth zone. And this is on a curve too. Eventually, if you stay out there too long, you start to stress, you start to have anxiety, and you can start to go down and then you burn out. However, if you stay in the growth zone for too long, in the learning zone for too long, and don't do anything, comfort zone, sorry. So you're in the comfort zone, you go backwards because you've got no meaning, you've got no purpose, and that leads to depression.
Get ill.
Yeah.
Autoimmune.
So the
cardiovascular
goal,
disease, all that.
Yep, exactly right. So the goal is to sit in the comfort zone, go back into the learning zone. When you're starting to get a bit stressed, take a break. Go back into the comfort zone for a second, catch your breath, and hit it again. That's the aim. So that's where the self-care comes in, this whole industry of self-care. It was good, but then it can get to a point where we're too compassionate with ourselves and we don't push ourselves enough.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, okay. Totally.
Yep. So we've got to be compassionate with ourselves, go back into a bit of self-care, and now I'm ready to go again. Let's go, let's push hard, let's get those goals. You can't always push and get the goals, so you do have to be comfortable being still. It's all about balance. But you cannot stay in that zone, in that comfort zone, because you will go backwards.
This is what I'm trying to get across in the education system. We've become so emotional, and Paul Taylor said the same thing. And his wife, actually, Carly Taylor, who's a wellness coach, she said we're now pathologizing all of our emotions.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I love that term, pathologizing our emotions. I'm like, wow, that hit me hard when she said it. And now I used it with her consent. And we do, though. We're such in a comfortable zone, you know, and people... When I talk about my cold exposure, when we talk about it quite a lot, and it, you know, people, it's just fashionable. Well, actually, I was doing it before it's fashionable, but that side of things, we've actually been doing cold water exposure for over 100,000 years. We only had warm water in the last. It's just now a nice way to put myself through some healthy stress, stress, whatever you want to call it. But also building, in schools, we talk about building resilience all the time. We do role plays. We acknowledge it in our words. But then when a kid asks for a pencil, we give them a pencil. We don't want them to come up and speak in the front because they're scared and shy of coming up. No, push them through that. Get them to come and speak in front of people. I'm not being mean, but when they walk away from speaking, yes, it might have been hard. Yes, it might have been difficult. It might have brought up some feelings they're really not comfortable with. But when they sit down, they'll feel a tiny bit more comfortable about speaking next time. And one day they're going to get a job. They're going to go for a job they're not going to get. What they're going to do, how they're going to respond to that time if they're not prepared for it. Now's the time to do it at school, you know, at home. Not give them iPads to be babysat with. Don't keep giving them pencils when they can't find one. Go and figure it out for yourself. Yep. That to me is putting the body and mind through some struggles so they can build resilience. But yet we want to talk about resilience for 1 hour a week and we've ticked a box, you know?
I'm all about running at triggers. Sometimes I can be a little bit hard on it, and I actually had to rewrite my trauma course because it was too triggering for people. But that's how I am. I'm like, if there's a trigger, you need to run at that. If you run away, I don't do trigger warnings on any of my stuff because I'm like, you're an adult. You need to learn to deal with your own emotions. How you handle certain things is up to you. It's not my responsibility to control how you feel. It can sound harsh, but
I get it.
You're not going to grow.
Yeah, that guy did.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, through all my injuries and through everything like that, they were there. This was another key point for me. When I was going through all my stuff, I suppressed all my anger when I was younger. I learned early on that if I expressed myself, that I'd be punished for it. So usually when the punishment doesn't fit the crime, children learn to suppress emotions. So, and that's what happened to me. So I didn't feel heard, and that I was like, you know what, I can't deal with this pain. I'm just going to shut it down. There's no point having all that pain. And part of me, this is where we call our reintegration. So we want to unpack all those boxes, and we want to learn how to feel emotions again. Because a lot of the shadow work, we're trying to get the emotions that we've shut down out. So I learned getting angry is bad. If I get angry, I'm going to get into trouble. So I shut down angry and become a pushover. Right? However, when you start on your healing journey and somebody rips the top of that anger box off and you're going through therapy, all of it, you go through this stage of just being angry, and you can rage, and you're like, it becomes a superpower, right? I've gone from being extremely hurt, extremely sad, extremely depressed, which are all negative emotions. When you feel angry, you feel power, you feel control. These are all sort of more positive emotions, and it's a lot better feeling that than that. Okay, and that's where I was at the time. So as soon as I started to get angry, I used to say it was like, ever seen Fantastic Five? The guy goes flame on, and he can turn the flames on. I got to a point where I was able to go like, be angry, and I could make myself so angry, but to me at the time it was better than just crying my eyes out in the corner of the room for a while. It got too painful for me for a while. So I used this anger as energy, and I used it as power, and I really learned how to control it. You always attack people who you're closest to, because especially when you've come out of a toxic relationship, you want to push people away, because if you push them away, it's your choice, and that way they're not going to hurt you because it's your choice. You push them away. They didn't have a say in it. So if I push them away before they can push me away, that's cool. So I was going through this anger phase, and I was threatening some of the boys, and I remember one of the sergeants called me, and I'd just come out of my physio, where I'd found out about all the stuff that was wrong with my back, because my doctor had lied to me. He'd been pressured by work cover for me to go back to work, and I was like, I can't move. And you're telling me there's nothing wrong with me? He's like, you're fine, you're not getting a clearance, you have to go back to work. So my physio office was next door. I went into my physio, and my physio wasn't there that day, and I had a different physio. So the new physio had my paperwork, and he was like, yep, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. And I was like, you must have somebody else's chart. The doctor said I'm fine, I'm good to go back to work. And he went, mate, you're never going to work again. And I was like, what? Are you serious? So I remember I walked out after that session. I walked out, hobbled out, and I held it in like as much as I could. By the time I got to the door leaving the physio, I had water welling up in my eyes. I was starting to cry. The second I opened the door and nobody saw me, I just went to water. I was crying my eyes out, and I'd been acting pretty erratically for a while. I was hitting the drugs pretty bad. I was hitting the drugs that bad, the actual national president banned me from partying for 3 months and prospected me. Took all my club clothes, took absolutely everything. I was back to being a prospect with no benefits of being in the club at all, and not allowed to drink, not allowed to do drugs, no nothing.
What you just witnessed is only a snippet of our amazing conversation this week. This is what Leading Our Own Way is all about. Real stories, real transformation. If you're watching this before Wednesday, part 1 dropped yesterday and part 2 releases tomorrow. But if you're already here after Wednesday, all parts are available now. Head to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and every other major platform and look for the numbers on the bottom left-hand corner of the episode's covers to start with part 1. Trust me, you don't want to miss this incredible journey.